Dobro večer.
Dobro večer.
Dobro večer.
Evo još da nam se Robert priključi. Evo tu je. Ljiljana.
Hello, Robert.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
I will just give you a short introduction in Serbian, if you don't mind, and then we can continue in English. Dobro večer, dragi gosti. Večeras se ponovo družimo u okviru našeg, sada već mogu da kažem, tradicionalnog online ciklusa Teološki razgovori, i naše večerašnje izlaganje će biti na engleskom iz razloga što je deo međunarodne konferencije koju organizuje Centar za empirijska istraživanja religije, a koja ove godine nosi naziv Kultura Hodočašća. I tim povodom naš gost večeras je Robert Čilija. On je između ostalog volonter udruženja Caritas, ali i rukovodilac Srednjoškolskog centra za obrazovanje migranata i izbeglica Naxxar Secondary sa Malte. I Robert će večeras da priča o redu malteških vitezova bolnice Svetog Jovana Jerusalimskog, koji je danas poznati pod jednim drugim nazivom, Suvereni vojni malteški red, ako sam dobro prevela, i pričat će o ulozi u pružanju pomoći hodočasnicima na njihovom putu do Jerusalima. Robert, one more time, welcome. I shortly introduce you as a volunteer of Caritas and assistant head of Induction Hub Secondary Naxxar from Malta. We are very happy to have you, and we are really appreciate your contribution to our international conference. I will share the slides that you send me, and you can start slowly with your presentation.
Okay. Hi. Good evening, everyone. I think in your countries, it's more or less the same time as in Malta, right? You're from Serbia, so it's more or less the same time. As I said, good evening. As Liliana said, I work in education, and I do a lot of voluntary work with Caritas and other associations. I want to, first of all, give a reason or two reasons why I've decided to speak about this topic. The Sovereign Military Hospital Order of St. John of Jerusalem, of Rhodes, and of Malta. Obviously, I think the connection is clear. I want to speak about this order. It's a religious order, actually, because it represents something that Malta is closely associated with. This order, the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, in short, ruled Malta for over 200 years. I don't know if you've ever come to Malta. Any one of you came to Malta? Anyone? Hello? Anyone came to Malta? You? Anyone? No. Okay. Anyway, so most this order built most of our fortifications. It built one of our national treasures, which is the Cathedral of St. John in Valletta. So the connection is quite clear, I hope. Another reason why I've decided to speak about the Sovereign Military Order is because the period that we're going to address, mainly the late Middle Ages, starting, let's say, from the 10th century to the 12th, 13th century, represented a time of friction between the East and West, between Christianity and Islam. But still, in spite of the fact that it was a time of tension, there were also beacons of light. There were instances, a lot of instances where the Franks cooperated with the local population. There was a lot of fusion in culture, and there was a lot of fusion in the exchange of knowledge. Obviously, Europe benefited a lot from this exchange of knowledge and culture. So those are the two main reasons why I'm going to speak about the order, the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. I'm going to do so by trying, I will try, I hope I will succeed, by combining three different strands into one. I'm going to speak a little bit about the holy sites that were popular in the Middle Ages, about the evolvement of pilgrims and how pilgrims evolved. And finally, these two I will try to combine and show how the Sovereign Military Order was in fact the catalyst for the fusion of these two strands. So let me start a little bit with the most popular sites that were visited in the Middle Ages. I'm going to refer, the time frames are between, let's say, the 10th century to the 12th, 13th century. There were three main pilgrimage sites that attracted thousands, literally thousands of people from all over Europe. And these three sites were Santiago de Compostela in Spain, where the body of St. James was buried. There's this tradition that in the 9th century, there was a shepherd who was caring for his flock of goats, and they found this body. And it was established that this was the body of St. James. And this cathedral was built in place, and Santiago de Compostela became the journey for a lot of Christians from all over Europe. A second important site was Rome, which drew pilgrims from all over Europe because it represented the burial sites of Saint Peter. The Basilica of Saint Peter was built on the tomb of Saint Peter. As well, it represents the resting place of Saint Paul. So these were two of the main pilgrimage sites for medieval pilgrims. But the star attraction, if we can call it so, was represented by Jerusalem. Jerusalem represented really the most important site of pilgrimages for medieval pilgrims. Obviously, the connection is that it represented the places where Jesus Christ preached and was crucified. It also represents the place where the resurrection of Christ took place. So really, Jerusalem was the top place for pilgrimages in the Middle Ages. Jerusalem became popular at the time of Saint Helen, or Helen, the mother of the Emperor Constantine, who was later obviously risen to the sainthood. Saint Helen, the mother of Constantine. After Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70 of the Common Era, Jerusalem went into decline for 2-3 centuries. But when Constantine became the first Christian Roman emperor, the importance of Jerusalem increased, and it started to attract increasing number of pilgrims. Now the context of pilgrims differs from today. I mean, today pilgrims go to particular sites, I don't know, maybe Fatima, Lourdes, and other sites, Medjugorje, to pray. The concept of going on a pilgrimage during the Middle Ages was different, because you actually went on a pilgrimage to be washed, to be rid of all your sins. This was the main attraction for going on a pilgrimage during the Middle Ages. The concept that all your sins will be forgiven, they will be pardoned, and you would be assured of a place in heaven. And this concept to us might seem a little bit alien, but to people living in the Middle Ages, the concept of the afterlife, and the afterlife defined by hell or heaven, was very, very strong. So people used to go on a pilgrimage to get rid of their sins. And if you allow me, I want to read a short extract about the Count of Anjou, Fulk Nera. This nobleman, this French nobleman, went on 3 pilgrimages to Jerusalem, which to us, we might think that during the Middle Ages, traveling was very much restricted. But in actual fact, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people journeyed all over Europe to go on these pilgrimages. And I want to read a little bit from this book. It's called The Crusaders by Thomas Ashbridge, about the Count of Anjou. The Count himself admitted in a letter that he had caused a great deal of bloodshed in various battles, and was therefore terrified by the fear of hell. In the hope of purifying his soul, he made 3 pilgrimages to Jerusalem, more than 2,000 miles away. On the last of these journeys, now an old man, Fulk was said to have been led naked to the Holy Sepulchre, the site of Jesus' death and resurrection, with a leash around his neck, being beaten by his servant while he begged Christ for forgiveness, in the hope of being assured a place in heaven. So this was the biggest attraction for going on a pilgrimage in the concept of the Middle Ages. The fact that going on a pilgrimage would assure you a place in heaven. Now, I want to define a little bit about the concept of pilgrims. We might think that it was like a person decides to go on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Let's keep the case of Jerusalem. And he would pack his things, or she would pack her things, because there were also quite a number of women who went on pilgrimage, and they would just leave their village or the city where they were living, and they would go on this pilgrimage. In fact, it was quite different, because going on a pilgrimage required a lot of preparation. First of all, you had to make certain that the family members that you were leaving behind, you left enough money for them so that they could live in a decent way. Another condition that you had to satisfy if you were to go on a pilgrimage was that you had to settle any outstanding debts that you had. And to go on a pilgrimage, you had to have the authority, the authorization of the bishop of the area. They prepared a testimonial for persons going on a pilgrimage. And if people did not have these testimonials and they were stopped, they could have been arrested, because without these testimonials, the concept of pilgrimage and therefore having the benefit of having a place in heaven would not be granted. Another aspect that one has to consider is that we use the word pilgrims to cover all people journeying to go and visit holy sites, when in fact there were three classes of people traveling from the place where they were living to go to a holy site. There were those who were known as roamers, those who were journeying to Rome. There were those who were known as pilgrims, and pilgrims, according to the terminology of the Middle Ages, referred to those persons who were traveling to visit the holy sites at Compostela. So what about Jerusalem? The persons who were traveling to Jerusalem, they were referred to as palmers. Palmers were the persons who were crossing the seas or going beyond the seas to the Holy Land. And they were referred to as palmers because one of the things that they were obliged to bring back if they returned back to their places, to their original places of residence, was a palm, was a piece of palm from Jerusalem, from the Holy Land. So these were the three different classes of people journeying to visit and to pray in holy shrines. Another to be technically termed as a pilgrim, one had to have 5 outward signs, and these were anyone who was granted permission by the bishop to become a pilgrim, and in the case of persons who were already forming part of the priesthood or who were monks, the permission would be granted by the abbot of the convent in which they were residing. To become a pilgrim, you had to have 5 outstanding outward signs. And these consisted of, if you allow me to read, a long gray tunic with a hood. On the hood, on the tunic, you had to have the sign of the cross in red. A cap, also in red. You had to have the sign of the cross in red. A long beard. Another thing that you have to have a small bag containing the barest essentials of victuals, some water, some bread, because pilgrims are also expected to beg on their way to the holy sites. So you were not expected to carry a big amount of clothes or food on you. And the last aspect was that pilgrims had to have a staff, a sort of long walking stick. These were the 5 characteristics that distinguished pilgrims. Obviously, pilgrims during the 4th, 5th century, at least those going to Jerusalem or to the Holy Land, were not big in numbers. But the numbers increased drastically around the year 1000. And there were two reasons for this. One was that in the 10th century, the king of Hungary was converted to Christianity. And Hungary presented a good route for persons traveling to the Holy Land to go through Hungary, follow the Danube, go along the Adriatic coast. In fact, there were two important routes along the Balkans, and these were the Via Diagonalis and the Via Egnatia, which were old Roman routes, arrive at Byzantium, and then from there travel on to Syria and to the Holy Land. So this was one of the reasons that the number of pilgrims to the Holy Land increased, in spite of the fact that at the time the Holy Land was dominated by Muslims. The second reason why the amount of pilgrims increased in around the year 1000 was that people were in a panic at the time. There was this conception that the world would soon end because there was the prevailing thought that in the year 1033, that would be the end of the world because it represented 1 millennium after the crucifixion of Christ. So people were in a hurry to go to the Holy Land so that their sins would be washed away, so that they would be assured a place in heaven. As the number of pilgrims increased, it obviously, first of all, obviously, it was quite a dangerous journey. Not as dangerous as we might think, because even for the Ubayyad Empire, which under whose rule Jerusalem was, did not create any problems for pilgrims because they represented an important source of revenue for them. But obviously, pilgrims got sick, they got tired, they might be robbed on the way. So a group of merchants from Amalfi in Italy decided to create something to help pilgrims when they are sick, when they were in need of rest. And the reason why these merchants from Amalfi decided to help the poor and the needy pilgrims going to Jerusalem was because Amalfi was the Italian city-state having the greatest commercial links with Jerusalem. And the Caliph of Jerusalem gave them a permission to create a hospital, a resting place for people traveling there. And very soon, more and more people started attending this hospital. One of the characteristic features of the hospital was that it did not pay any attention to what kind of religion the person needing rest in the hospital or care in the hospital had. They did not pay any attention if they were poor or rich. The first person to organize the hospital, it was dedicated to St. John in Jerusalem, was Gerald, a rich merchant from Amalfi, who later who later rose to the sainthood. He became Blessed Gerald. After the conquest, after the First Crusade conquered Jerusalem, the hospitallers, the night hospitallers, became even more established. They were granted more land. They were recognized a religious order, and this, I think, was one of the first instances when a religious order was not solely confined to a monastery or to pray, but they wanted to actually involve themselves in society by helping care for the poor. So the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, its first call was to help the poor, to help the needy. And even if we read the charter establishing the order, for example, we read how much the care of the poor, irrespective of religion, irrespective of where you were born, was important for the order. For example, the charter establishes that the poor were termed as lords, showing the importance that the order always had for the needy and the poor. It was only later, about the year 1100, that the order assumed a military function due to the change in what was happening in the Kingdom of Jerusalem. The fact that the Muslim world was becoming more unified, and the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the Franks, were finding it increasingly difficult to counteract the union of the Muslim world. Eventually, the Sovereign Military Order established quite a lot of contact with other groups in Jerusalem and the Holy Land. They had a hospital which was outstanding. They had a hospital which, according to records, had nearly 2,000 beds. It was divided it was like a modern hospital. There were sections dealing with particular diseases. There was an obstetrics department. Patients had their own beds. So it was quite a center of excellence. When the Kingdom of Jerusalem fell in the year 1290, they then transferred to Rhodes. After the fall of Rhodes in 1530, the order came to Malta. It was granted Malta, and that's why there was this link established between Malta and the Order of St. John. So that was my talk about the Order of St. John. I would welcome any questions. I would welcome any recommendations. This represents the recently, maybe 10, 15 years ago, during an excavation, a part of the old hospital where the Order of St. John had its hospital in Jerusalem was discovered. And this is probably one of the most famous landmarks in the Middle East, the Crac de Chevaliers, which was the last stronghold that the Order of St. John had in the Holy Land. So I hope I have not annoyed you by what I've said. So if there are any questions, I would be more than glad to welcome them. Any comments about what was said, any comments about the time that we're speaking about, the Middle Ages, and the context that even at that time of crisis, of tensions, there was this going on, that the Order of St. John cared for all the poor, irrespective of what religion you had. There was also quite a lot of trade going on. There was also quite a lot of fusion of arts going on. So even in this time, there was this thirst for trying to live together. So I don't know, I would welcome any questions, any comments, as I've already said. I look forward to what you would say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It was really interesting and for me quite new, especially those types of different terms for pilgrims. I didn't think about that earlier. So thank you. It was very inspiring. If some of you doesn't speak English so well, you can saying a question in Serbian and we will translate. And yeah, be free, not just to ask Robert something, but also to comment, yes, and to share your thoughts with us.
No one? Okay.
Maybe they need time to think. As I said, this is the part of our international conference, and this year, Center for Empirical Research of Religion chose the topic, the culture of pilgrimage. So in the next few days, we will have 35 participants and 2-3 days of very interesting presentations and discussion, conversation, sharing. It's always very productive and dynamic. And yeah, unfortunately, or luckily, I don't know, some of those presentations are online. So Robert, okay, thank you, because you join us online. Maybe next year you will be in Belgrade or in Novi Sad, it depends.
Maybe. Yeah, okay, okay.
Where we will organize that.
Maybe it will be in Jerusalem.
We
plan to visit Holy Land also.
May your visit succeed, Professor. May it succeed, and may it be a venture of peace as well. So
yes,
because unfortunately the Holy Land has always been a land of turmoil, unfortunately. So I hope it will succeed and you will reach your aims, really.
Thank you.
Slobodane, možete slobodno prokomentarisati i na srpskom ako želite. Nije nikakav problem.
Pa, mislim, u suštini moje znanje engleskog jezika je više da slušam nego što bih sad mogao da to reprodukujem. Pa mislim, zanimljivo, u svakom slučaju zanimljivo predavanje, tako da, eto, kažem, mislim, zanimljivo u smislu da tog viteškog reda, eto, ako može da kaže nešto o tim vitezovima malteškim, koja je to specifičnost tog viteškog reda,
Yeah, okay. Hvala. Robert, can you tell us a little bit more about the Knights of Malta? And
Sure.
people are very often confused, and they're mixing those orders. Who are the
Okay.
Knights of Malta, and who are actually the Order of St. John?
Okay, so first of all, there were three big military orders, even if the Order of St. John is not strictly a military order, because interestingly, the Order of St. John, its initial charisma, it was founded to help the poor, to offer help to the poor, to offer help to the needy. For example, the hospital in Jerusalem was also a place where people who were destitute, mothers who were destitute, as soon as they had a son or daughter who was born there, irrespective if she was Muslim, irrespective if she was Jewish, irrespective if she was Christian, they used to go there and leave their newborn babies at the hospital, and they would be given the best kind of a bringing possible, irrespective of religion. Interestingly enough, at the time, the greatest distinction in the kingdom of Outremer, the Holy Land, the kingdom of Outremer, the kingdom that is beyond the sea, the Mediterranean Sea. The greatest distinction at the time, it was not really between Muslim or Orthodox or Jewish or Christian or Catholic or Armenian or Copt, but between those who were Franks and non-Franks, though the non-Franks were born in the Holy Land. The Franks were those who were coming from Europe, from Normandy, from France. It's a bit like, if you want to, what happened in Algeria during the 1950s, 60s, when Algeria acquired its independence. The French people who left Algeria to go and live in France because they were French, they were considered as French of a second nature. In fact, they were called pieds noirs, the black-legged French. In the kingdom of Outremer, there was as well this idea. So really, the sovereign military order was not, strictly speaking, a military order. It was a caring order, and the military function was secondary. But there were two other orders at the time, which were 100% military. And these were the Teutonic Knights, which were a German order, but it had members from all over Europe. And the main aim of the Teutonic Knights was the spreading of Christianity in Lithuania, in Latvia, in Poland, in Russia. And there was, I don't know if it's more famous than the Order of St. John, the Order of the Templars. The Templars. The Templars, from its very beginning, was a military order. It was enacted, it was formed to fight the Muslims. So these were the three main military orders of the time. The Order of St. John, it's called the Order of St. John because its beginning is associated with the Hospital of Jerusalem, which was dedicated to St. John the Baptist. When the knights were forced to flee from Outremer, from the kingdom of Outremer, towards the year 1200, in the middle of the 13th century, more or less. Their last stronghold was Crac the Chevaliers, which was included in that short PowerPoint. They left the Middle East, they left Syria and Lebanon, and they went to Rhodes. They had their base there. And at the time, there was a gradual shift from being a military order focusing on land warfare, and then changing their priority to naval warfare, because obviously Rhodes is an island. When the Turks, the Seljuk Turks, they were becoming much more powerful. A few years before, they had won Byzantium, and then they decided to attack Rhodes, which was considered one of the greatest sieges at the time. After a 1 year or 2 year siege, the knights capitulated. They left Rhodes. They went in search of a home. They had nowhere to stay. And finally, King Philip, Emperor Philip V, decided to give Malta to the knights. So the knights came to Malta in 1530. They brought with them a contingent, for the time, a large contingent of Greeks, because they were based in Rhodes, obviously. It is considered that they brought with, about 10,000 people arrived in Malta around 1530. Knights, sergeants at arms, people from Rhodes, because they didn't want to live there, and they settled in Malta. So the connection with Malta is this. And in Malta, they continued with the care aspect. It was one of their priority areas. But as well, they were a military order by now, and they refined sea warfare. In fact, at the time, even if they had a small fleet, in 1530s, 1560s, the galley fleet of the order was considered to be one of the finest fighting forces in the Mediterranean. And they participated in the Battle of Lepanto as well. So this was, I hope I answered your question. I don't know if I did. If not, and you need any more clarifications, I would be more than glad to do so. So I don't know.
Robert, Slobodan has one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm just reading the chat. How much the Knights of Malta believed in God?
Quite an interesting question. We have to answer this according to the perceptions of the time. If we go to the Knights, if we go to the time, to the 12th century, to the 13th century, I think the Knights were really trying to live the Catholic faith as preached by Jesus. Why? Because at the time, illness, sickness, was considered to be something that was the result of sin. If, for example, we read, I think, one of the most interesting passages in the Bible, in the New Testament, John chapter 9, verse 2. There is this incident where Jesus, there was this blind man in the pool of Siloam, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, when Jesus told him, listen, this was a blind man from birth. Jesus told him, go wash in the pool of Siloam. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. But what is interesting is that Jesus, as often happened, he was asked by the Pharisees, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Because at the time, even up to the late Middle Ages, illness, disease, being sick, was considered a sign that you were being sinful. So that the knights had this charisma of caring for the sick and the poor was, I think, a true sign that they believed in the words of Jesus Christ. Imagine, at the time they also had, which was for me, I think, something outstanding, they also had an outreach program in Jerusalem because they said, if persons are so sick that they cannot come to our hospital, what will happen to them? So they actually created an outreach program. They used to go out in the area surrounding Jerusalem, seeing if anyone was sick, so sick that they cannot even walk, and they used to take them to their own hospital. So in this context, I think that the knights really wanted to act according to what Christ had taught, according to what Christ had said, that you see in the poor, in the sick, my own self. Obviously, there were excesses. There were knights who committed crimes, as often happens. But I think that on the whole, the Knights of St. John did try to live according to the teachings of Christ. They also had, as I said, they were a monastic order, and they took the 3 vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience. They rejected all worldly riches. The members, obviously, the order was very rich ultimately until it was destroyed by the French Revolution, by Napoleon.
But do we still have some of the orders that are active currently?
Of course, the only order that is active currently that goes back to the time of the Holy Land is the Order of St. John. It's still active. For example, I don't know about the Balkans, but have you ever heard of St. John's Ambulance Brigade, which is very active all over? That's an offshoot of the Order of St. John. The Order of St. John still goes through the St. John Ambulance Brigade in places where there is war, where there is confrontation, where people are in need. They are still very active. They are a sovereign order. They've got their own ambassadors. They've got their own leader, who is known as a Grand Master. And they are responsible only to the Pope. They are only responsible to the Pope. So I think they are quite flexible. I mean, being still in existence after nearly 1,000 years speaks volumes. And I do think that they really tried to live according to the teachings of Jesus Christ. As I said, I mean, a 16th century or a 15th century knight of the Order of St. John used to think according to the perceptions of the time. But if we go back to the founding of the order by Gerald, blessed Gerald, the fact that he decided, he thought, listen, we need to help the poor, we need to help the needy, we need to help the pilgrims going to Jerusalem, to the Holy Land. And not only the pilgrims, eventually, the people, all people living in the area of Jerusalem, living in the Holy Land. So much so that when Saladin retook Jerusalem, he didn't do anything to the Order of St. John. He left them there. He gave them their privileges back. Why? Because they were doing a lot of good, even to Muslims. So I hope I answered your question. I don't know. I don't know if you need any, I don't know if you want any other explanation. I don't know if I answered your question.
Thank you, Robert. It was really great and interesting.
Thank you.
I think for us, maybe quite new topic. I'm not sure, but I think that here in Balkan region, we don't have so much experience with Templars or Knights of Malta. Or
no, but it was, but the Balkans were quite a very important route for the passage of pilgrims, for the passage of soldiers, of military men on the way to Jerusalem. So. Any more questions or comments, or I don't know what?
If no, you can write in the chat comments, but yeah, it's almost 8 o'clock, so we will close this Friday talk. Robert, thank you one more time.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
It was a pleasure, really, to have you with us, and you're always free to join us every Friday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe thanks to you and other international guests, we will have international theological conversation on Fridays. As I said, on Sunday, we will open our international conference, and then the whole day and the Monday and day after, we will have chance to listen really, really great presentation. 4 of you here are our participants, and I'm really happy to meet Angelko for the first time. Svetlana and Slobodan are now our traditional guests, not guests, member of family, if I can say. I wish you a warm welcome to Robert and Angelko too. And it was very nice conversation. Thank you, Robert. And thank you for all of you, because you stayed with us. And Slobodan, thank you for interest.
Have a nice weekend. Bye. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.